What's your favorite color? Mine is probably difficult to guess what it is, right? Well, it's this color. And I make posters about everything that I like, so let's make some posters for some shades of blue. But first things first are the colors. I want to select some blues that I want to work with for this poster set. I went to my trusty coolers.co, but it wasn't loading for some reason, so we'll go without. I looked up some shades of blue on Google just to have some inspiration, and my preference usually goes towards a more deep sky blue. I got some inspiration from Google, and now I'm gonna go into Illustrator to make some quick color selections. And I kind of came up with the colors as I went along, so I just did what felt good and like what sparked inspiration and made me feel like, oh yes, let's make a poster for this. So these blue shades just give off a very like fresh summer days or like hot summer days vibe, and that's what I was kind of thinking of when selecting these colors. So they need to be very refreshing blues. For that, I just really focus on like rich and deep colors in the color picker, and again, see what feels good. So this is my selection, and it looks good for now, and even though it does, I'll probably change it a little bit as I go along. Now let's add a touch of Anthem design to make these posters. So of course we begin with my signature grid, which is a 6x5. It's a dream to work with this one. I use it literally all the time. So I lock it in place on a new layer so that it doesn't move around when I'm designing. And I'm just gonna add the color for my color swatch as a square. I'm gonna fill in like the whole page, almost the whole page with it, because we're starting off easy with this one. I just want to focus on the color itself. So I'm doing like a huge slab of color on there. And I'm adding some text to brand it, but the focus is really just on this beautiful, deep, rich blue color. I took a second there to think of the name for the color, and I very creatively settled on deep indigo. I added the hex code too and some other mouse type. And monospace fonts are really my thing right now, so I swapped my trusty Pretendard with IBM Plex Mono. You'll see this one in more posters in this video. And of course I have to make sure that I have perfect alignment everywhere, so next to matching it up with the grid, I also did some final edits to make sure that they are in nice correlation with each other. And that's the completion of the first poster. This was more of a warm-up, so let's get down to business for real now. Because the next one is more experimental. I am working with the transform tool in Illustrator, so you just head to effects, distort and transform, and then select transform. And there's a lot you can do to edit here, but I'd like to start with making more copies because then you see the effect properly. I usually do around 15, otherwise it gets way too big. So then I start adjusting some of the values to see what looks nice. I was really loving what this looked like as well. You'll get some really nice results if you just do a little bit of experimenting with some values, even if you change them just a little bit. So I kept going some more with experimenting. Changing the angle also does wonders to creating nice effects here. So after a good 5 to 10 minutes of experimenting, this is what I settled on. I felt that it gave a little bit of like a vintage design vibe, like Swiss design. I liked it. It was a nice vibe. So seeing as this graphic is quite big and really grabs the attention, I wanted to complement it with some smaller light type. So again, using my monospace font, I think it creates a very good balance to add like subtle mouse type and like very small additional graphics to something that's so big. So this balance is very important in my work, especially because that keeps the poster interesting but not overwhelming, even though the graphic itself is very big and imposing and quite complicated. For me, it's always about finding other elements that complement it instead of that counter it. So that way they work together instead of against each other, and that's like the harmony that you want to create in your work, at least for me. And I wanted to do another version of this, so I marked this as version 1. And honestly, writing mouse type itself is not my strong suit, so I did that later after I finished recording. Do excuse me. So that marks the completion of poster number 2. Like I said, we're gonna make an alternative to this one, because there's so much you can try with the transform tool that I wanted to turn this into a set and make the effect just a little bit more dramatic for the second one. Other than that, I kept everything the same practically, except this was version 2. Yeah, this was a very simple poster. Sometimes that just works. Okay, so this next one also focused on the color a lot. I wanted to add some bold, bigger type to fill like a bigger chunk of the page. But again, I started with a square, like a big square of the color, and that covers like most of the page. And I decided to round 2 corners of that square to make it just a little bit more interesting. Like it's a nice subtlety that makes it a bit more interesting and unique to look at. Then of course I paired it with some mouse type that says like the hex code and the color name. I went for arrow because I just felt that it felt right, like a bright summer day. I don't know, it felt right. And in all of these posters, I add some text about like the feelings that these colors invoke for me. It just added like a nice personal touch. So the last step is always alignment and final edits, making sure that all the elements align very nicely in context with each other and also the grid. And obviously we gotta add my branding as well. So that concludes the 4th poster. I also ended up moving the square to the edge of the page on the right to create just a little bit more tension, because then it feels like it'll continue off the page and it adds like a little bit of curiosity to it. So I tried to start each one with a box of blue to make sure I have my main element in there, which is the color. And this is another rich blue color, and I get so happy just looking at it. It's probably my favorite so far. So we need to really have a big focus on this color because it's just so good. So then I add in some type. Cerulean is supposedly the name of this color, and honestly it fits. So we add some more mouse type to talk about the color, but it also adds in making the poster look more of like a color sample, which was also kind of my goal with these posters, to make like color samples but make them design. So then I had also the idea to add a little bit more tension and creativity to the poster by taking like a circle from the blue and putting it in the white, as it kind of like took it out of there and put it on top. It's that little extra detail that draws you in more. That's the completion of poster number 5. I was on a roll making these, like I really went for it. I actually had a few more ideas that I didn't show here, but I wanted to show the final results. So here are all the posters I made for this theme all together. And the mockup here is actually from Bendito Mockup, and I wanted to let you know that you can still use the code IRISVD20 to get 20% off all their mockups on their website, and you can head to their website through the link in the description. And there's just one more thing I wanted to address, because I have a question for you guys. I'm thinking of starting a Patreon where some of the tiers would get a postcard set every month. So it'd be a set like the one that I designed in this video, so it's like A5 prints but sent to you as a set. And like postcard format. I was wondering if that's something you'd like, so please let me know in the comments, and also let me know if you'd like to have some of my posters in physical form in general. I'm very curious, so let me know. Okay, that's it for question time. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know if you have any questions about any design related things or any of the things I showed in this video. I'll be sure to answer them, and see you soon.